there is not a person, place, or thing in culture that God's love, the agape love, cannot completely transform. He is the way, the truth, the life, and we still believe in this generation.
All right, what's good, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of Culture Talk. We're so excited to see you back here again. As I was before and will forever be, my name is Sean. And here with me, I got same people as before. I tried to get The Rock, scheduling conflicts, I'm sorry. But yeah, we got Lewis with us, we got Gab with us, and we have Tati with us again. How are y'all doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing swell, Sean. Same.
Swell. I like the energy.
I'll tell you why I'm doing good, Sean. Hold up. I brought something.
You brought some?
You know where I'm going with this.
Let's go. You see this? We celebrating right now.
I see
celebrating. Got the championship.
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
What a time, man. What a time.
So I'm feeling good.
That's great to hear. Tati, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm super excited. We have a good topic today that we're going to dig into.
That's right. We always have good topics. That's just what we bring to Agape culture.
So true, Sean. That's right.
All right. Now, I started this tradition last time. We're going to keep this a regular thing. This is the random icebreaker, right? So This week's, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? Only one, though.
Oof. I don't know. Y'all go first. I got to think about this one.
Okay, I have one because I think about this all the time.
I'm ready.
It would be, I'm trying to think, super speed or teleportation. Because I'm a big fan of superheroes, Avengers, etc. So when I saw the series The Flash and how he can run, how he was always late to everything, but when he got the powers, he got to work on time. He was able to read 100 books in an hour and things like that. I thought that was so dope. So I'm like, I want super speed. I can run across water. I can read a bunch of books. I can be to work on time. If I wake up 5 minutes before I got to get there, super speed is where it's at. That's the superpower that I've wanted for the past 2 or 3 years.
I don't think any person that's ever thought about super speed thought about reading a book. So
Knowledge is power, Sean. Knowledge is power.
Way to bring the teacher out in your explanation of this. I love it. Love it.
That's funny. Good point.
Yeah. I would pick teleportation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to be everywhere in the world. I was just telling them last week how I want to go to Canada. I want to go to Mexico, Cuba, everywhere in one weekend. So I could do that. I could finally do that. Or waterbend. That's another one. Is that a superpower?
I don't think we're bringing the Avatar into this. So I think we're just sticking strictly superheroes. But hey, teleportation, you save on flying bills. So here you go. Never have to pay for a plane again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm gonna go with
Lewis.
Yeah, I'm gonna go teleportation, but whoever I can bring other people with me. So if we're all in a circle and we hold hands, we all go to Japan. You know what I mean? So that way I'm not the only one lonely, just getting to know these places. I get to take whoever with me.
No, you know what it's got to be? You got to pick them up like suitcases. That's the only way you can take other people with you. Just,
I'm with it. Yes.
Make it, these are my bags, bringing them with me, travel kind of thing.
Yeah.
How about you, Sean?
Mine, I'm going to be really basic. I want to be Spider-Man. It's that simple. That's just what I want. It's been my dream since I was 5. That's just what I'm going to stick with. So Just
So-
make me Spider-Man. If not real life, like make me a movie. Let's do that. Putting that into existence. Okay.
Yes.
So this week's topic is based on last week's message. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out after this.
Which was
because,
phenomenal.
You know, I'm not allowed to say that because I was the one that preached it, but thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, check it out after this because you're already here. Doesn't make sense to leave. But this week is talking about our neighbor. So, first question, I'm going to start with you, Lewis. Who would you define as your neighbor?
Yeah, I think aside from the obvious, like everybody's our neighbor, I think one of the things that you subtly touched on last week, but I kind of want to expand on it, is being, so you said, it might be somebody you least expect. And so to me, when I think of that question, I'm thinking of the person that maybe I don't see right off the bat, or maybe, they go unnoticed. A group of people might go unnoticed. And I think scripture is really clear that we can, be happy with those who are happy, but also cry with those who cry. And sometimes, not to get too deep off the jump, but sometimes some of the cries of people, of our neighbors, go unnoticed. And so I think one of the benefits of being a Christian and believing in Jesus is that we're commissioned to walk with those maybe who other people don't see. And so to me, my neighbors, not only just those around me that I can see, but it's those that I'm trying to intentionally say, I don't see them maybe right now. So I'm praying, Lord, give me this supernatural, vision to see people that I don't see normally, the outcasts, the misfits, the ostracized, the marginalized, whatever that looks like in whatever kind of context. If you're like in high school, that might be, some of the kids that, don't have friends. If you're, maybe a little older, some of the people a little more lonely. I think Jesus was really intentional about going after the people that nobody else, cared about, like in society. Like in his days, like children weren't really thought of as like, people, or even women in his time weren't thought of as people. But Jesus still found it necessary to look at them and say, first say, I see you. Secondly, to be love, to be hope, to be light. So to answer that question, I think for me, it's my neighbor is somebody that maybe I don't see just on the surface, but when I pray for, Lord, give me some supernatural vision, I think it could be people that, like you said last week, that I least expect.
I love making this full circle. Way to just, incorporate everything from that into this. Thank you. Gab, who is your neighbor? How would you define your neighbor?
Yeah, so I think Lewis really touched on pretty much the entire definition. What I took from both what Lewis said as well as what Sean preached about last week, when we talk about people that are unexpected, I think that's important because obviously the first thing that you think about are people that you know. All right, so you'll start, who's the closest people to me, family and friends. Like, okay, obviously those people are your neighbors. People maybe not as closest to me, coworkers, or people you see on the day-to-day. So that now we're going to the unexpected people. People that you're probably acquaintances to, or maybe people that you have never spoken to before in your life. So I was just thinking of some kind of concrete examples as Lewis was talking. People that are part of your commute, possibly. We all have some type of commute if you take public transit, like I do. People on the bus, or people on the train, or people on the walk to work or to school or wherever you go on the day-to-day, those people are your neighbors. People that not only that you surround yourself with on an emotional level, which could be close friends and family, but also people that you surround yourself with physically. You're physically surrounded by people on the bus or people that you're walking with. Like Lewis said, people that you don't normally speak to, in the cafeteria, you know, the groups of people that, you know, are doing their own thing and that you don't normally hang out with or associate yourself with, but you're surrounded by them. And those people are your neighbors, just people that you come in contact with daily. And that can also change day to day. On vacations, complete strangers, those are also your neighbors by definition, biblically. So just some concrete examples I thought about.
Right. And I think sometimes we actually, or at least in my case, sometimes forget to think of your household family. Like you're so used to going out and ministering to people out in the street. And when you come home, you're like tired, and maybe your family's Christian also. So you don't really focus too much on that. And you just unwind and you forget to really, that they have needs also, that you forget to treat them like they're your neighbors and be there for them in that same way. So that's something to look out for also, that we're also ministering to our families at home and taking care of that first.
Yeah, love that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I think those are all phenomenal answers. You know, I think sometimes when we think about, you know, neighbors, we, you know, sometimes do just equate it to family or people right near us, but you know, it's just as possible, you know, our neighbors could be, you know, a stranger we meet for 5 minutes on the train, you know, some random person we bump into on a vacation, like it could be basically anybody. So I think keeping that mindset of being neighborly is just so important. All right. So the passage we focused on last week's message was the Good Samaritan. And so for who may not know, it's, you know, 3 people walk by a guy who's beat up. One person stops to help. The other 2 were like, nah, we're good, and keep going. But those 2 were actually like religious people of that time. So I'm curious, and I'm going to start with Gab this time. Why do you think Jesus picked the religious ones to keep going?
Right. So I really like this question because I think the whole point of Jesus coming down to earth to teach us was to break religion and show us relationship. And I think this is a beautiful example of that, this story specifically, because at that time, and also even today, you would think the most religious person would stop everything that they're doing and help this person that is in need. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And I think Jesus wanted to use that as an example that it goes beyond religion. We need to have a relationship, well, first with God and with people. So I think that's why he wanted to highlight that belief in God, faith in God goes beyond religion. It's all about relationship. It's all about loving people. The verse that says, love thy neighbor as thyself, to really put your all into that and that be the focus.
Yeah, so the people of this time had a lot of the people that are considered religious, they had a lot of knowledge,
yes,
and which is a really great thing. But what Jesus tended to point out over many times was that they would stop there. They would stop at the knowledge, and they wouldn't continue on to practice what they knew.
Yes.
So there's actually a verse that speaks about this, and it's Matthew 23, verse 2. And it says, the scribes and this is Jesus talking to the crowd and to his disciples. And he said, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. So do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works that they do. For they preach, but do not practice. So I think in this example of him telling us this story, he's making it a point that the religious people aren't doing what he believes should be done. Because that's something that he teaches us throughout the Bible, that you can have knowledge and that's great, but what's more important is to actually practice all these things. And that's what the Samaritan person did, who may not have technically had the knowledge that the religious people did, but what they did more importantly was practice what they should have been practicing.
Good point.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a perfect depiction of what religion can do to somebody and what a relationship with Jesus can do to somebody. And what I mean by that is, I think the illustration of the religious, going about their way, I think it's because their eyes are so fixated on themselves. And I think religion in itself is, I need to do all these works so God can love me. So your eyes aren't on other people and loving people, on, putting people first. A lot of the times your eyes are going to be on yourself. Why? Because you're focused on trying to please God with all your works. And I think relationship is, viewing life from a stance of love, that God loves me. So because of that love, I get to love people. I get to serve people. I get to, look at people that, might be overlooked, like I said before. I get to help people out. And I think once you grasp that idea and that concept, you can understand the differences. So religion is looking inside, and it's looking at me, and it's, praying out loud so everybody can see how good I am and look how much things that I do and whatever. So it's all about me, me, me. Meanwhile, relationship, and I think Jesus was the ultimate relationship, I guess, guru, because he was exactly that. And so he's the Good Samaritan to us. So he didn't, come here and he wasn't served. No, he came to serve. He came to love. He came to be hope, to be light for other people. And I think that's what relationship is. Relationship is me talking to you. Relationship is me sitting down and, us having a conversation. That's relationship. I think religion is focusing on me. And that's why I think that's such a, crazy illustration of the two differences between religion and relationship. And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful, sometimes religion can find its way into, trying to find its way into our relationship with God. And I think it's easy for the enemy to try to have, these religious things in our minds and telling us, we're not good enough, and, we have to keep doing more and keep doing more. Meanwhile, the reality is, there's good news and there's bad news. Bad news is we're not good enough, but the good news is we have Jesus. And because of that, if you look at life out of out of those optics of love, of relationship, I think it makes a world of a difference.
Come on now, you better preach, Pastor. Bring it. I feel it. No, that was incredible. I think it's so important to point out the differences between, religion and relationship, and how, even you said sometimes, we get so caught up in religion, we forget about, what that relationship is supposed to be like. We get caught up in, like others just like the head knowledge and not, physically walking it out. I think a powerful story that illustrates that as well. John 8, the woman caught in adultery, where it's, religion said that she needed to be stoned, but relationship said, let's give her a second chance. Religion said, if you are actually perfect, you could throw the first one, kind of thing. And it made them introspect on themselves. So, yeah, I think remembering how important, relationship is, and that, like you said, we're not good enough. Like, that is the bad news. But the good news is Jesus meets us where we are, and we don't have to work to get any further.
Yeah.
So now, kind of as we've been focusing on that, I guess a good question to bring up is, have you ever found yourself rushing past a moment where you could have been helping? Very similar to these religious leaders of their time.
Yeah, I think it's nature, right? To rush past moments. And I think that's why I think self-care is super important, number one. I think you should, to a degree, you should care, about yourself and about your schedule, about your goals, your ambitions, your, what motivates you. That's crazy important. But I think at the same time, we're called for more than that. I think we're called for more than just self. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in this rat race that it's all about self. And I know that I'm a victim of it when I try to operate kind of in my own, my own ways and do too much about self. That's actually when I start getting insecure. Like, I'll give you an example of why, for example, I think tithing is so important, because I realize for me, when I don't tithe and when I don't give, to the local church, I don't give to ministries, I don't give to anything that's building and honoring God. When I don't give, I actually start getting more insecure about finances, because, I'm withholding what God's, blessed me with. And so I'm focused on self rather than, when I actually, when I do give, when I give tithes, man, I feel so liberated. And when I give, man, I want to give more. I want to give more generously. I want to give, out of more love. And I think we give not only to receive, because that's a real part of it. And I think God is the God, he's the God of love, peace, and joy. I also think, God owns prosperity. But at the same time, I think we also give to make sure, and we check our own souls, that we are not being, choked by the love of money, about the selfish love that money can bring. There's nothing wrong with money in it and of itself is not bad. Money's not the enemy. And like, goals aren't the enemy. Motivation isn't the enemy. Like, that's great stuff. But the verse specifically says the love of money is the root of all evil. And I think that specific, the love of, it's different. When you have a love of these things, a lot of times you start looking at yourself before you look at other people. And so I use that example of tithing, for example, because that's something that I've realized in my own life. So I think I want to, still have my goals and still, have, things that are going to benefit me. But at the same time, I don't want to get wrapped up in it. And I want to look like Jesus the best way I can, which is trying to be the Good Samaritan. I'm going to fall sometimes, which is bound to happen because it is human nature. But at the same time, I think Jesus gives us the ability to get back up and to dust ourselves off and say, we're not good enough. But with Jesus, we can hopefully, look past ourselves, look past our pride, look past our ego, and, to really try to make a difference in the world. I think it's a lot easier than what culture makes it out to be, especially not in today's day and age, by the way, because, you do the most simplest act of doing something unselfish, you're the hero, because I think the world is so void of anything that's not self. So you do the simplest act. You'd be amazed what kind of seeds you start sowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic answer, and I think something I just want to touch on right after is, I think that whole idea of the social media giver, where it's, we go do these fantastic things just for stories on an Instagram and it's not genuine, but this idea of, stepping up and doing things, and not getting the praise for it. Jesus said himself, like, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, not because it's not important, but because that power of, the anonymousness of it, it brings you a special treasure that you'll only get in heaven, that you're not going to get here on earth. And so it's playing that long game, I guess.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm decent when it comes to things like if someone's dying in the street in front of me, that I'll help them.
That's what happened to you?
That was such a drastic transition. Just want to point that out.
Or like if
What?
someone like is walking and they just drop a bunch of things, I'll help them pick them up. But what I realized,
more relatable.
But what I realized about myself is that when it comes to things like conversation, that's where I see myself rushing. So like, for example, if I'm in the office and I'm in the middle of doing something and I go to the printer to get something and someone catches me and they're like, oh, how are you? Like, how's your day going? And I'm kind of speeding through this conversation so I can focus on what I need to do. But let's say they mention something like they're having a long day and they're giving me hints that they're not doing so great. I tend to just be like, yeah, me too, I feel ya, and just run away so I can hurry up and do what it is that I need to do. So thinking of this, it reminds me of that. Like, those are moments where I could stop and just take the time to give them some type of encouragement, even though they're not asking for it. But little moments like that, it might not be someone's dying in the street in front of me, but those are moments where someone needs something, they need help, they need maybe just encouragement or just to feel seen or, you know, validated in some way, and I'm just rushing past it because I need to do what I feel like is important at the moment instead of their heart being important, their soul being important.
I like that. Wow. Okay. I'm trying to like mesh that as well as Sean and Lewis's answer, because I feel like things like that, like that's a great concrete example of how we can help someone like daily. And like both Sean and Lewis touched on, we're very sucked in to social media in this day and age in our culture. Like, it's a big thing. If something good happens, it's always like there has to be pictures or some type of video for proof. And, you know, there's this saying, what is it? Like, faith restored in humanity. You know, like, why is faith being restored in humanity by this picture or by this video? Because we are lacking, like, just good works, just for the sake of having good works, for the sake of being a good Samaritan daily. It's only shown by this picture or by this video. And unfortunately, we don't see enough of it. So I think us in our daily lives, we can each be a good Samaritan by just the little things that we do, like Tati said, in the office or at school, from these little conversations. Super simple, you know, like a person being tired or having a long day or being stressed out, whether it be about a test or about work that they have to do that day or work that they're behind on. A lot of the times, you know, you don't know, obviously, what a person is going through unless that person speaks to you and opens up about it. That won't always happen all of the time, like Tati said, but just offering, you know, lending an ear, lending a shoulder to cry on, or just being a person that's asking about it shows that you care, shows a small act that can go a very long way, or even just a smile. And that can go, you know, towards anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you know or speak to. You can smile to, obviously, random people on the street or in the hallway. And maybe that person didn't get a smile that day, but they got one from you. And that could mean a lot more than you think. It may mean absolutely nothing to you, but to them, it may mean a lot. So I think small acts like that, we should take into consideration of how we can be good Samaritans in our daily lives.
You know what's funny? When Sean was preaching last week, he mentioned how at the time robbers or criminals tended to, in the street, put someone there acting like they're dying and then keep another one on the side so when someone goes to help them, they can rob them. I was thinking of that, and honestly, have you ever seen movies where there's like, you're driving in the car and then there's a pregnant woman trying to fix her car that broke down on the side of the street, and when they go to help them, they get like killed because that pregnant woman is pretending just pretending that they need help so that they can get jumped. I just wanted to share, Sean. You made me think of that. I'm not sure that I would ever pull over for a pregnant woman in the street now that I've seen those movies. So if this was really a time,
but you would pull over for a person dying in front of you.
But anyway, so if that time back then, that was really a thing where robbers did that as staging so that they can hurt someone. I can't believe that's hard. That's really hard for someone to actually stop if that was really the case back then. That's really difficult. I don't think I can pull over for a pregnant woman potentially pretending that their car broke down. I don't really have a point with that. I just wanted to share. You made me think of that.
Hey, you know, we appreciate you sharing whatever comes to mind in these conversations. No, but I mean, yeah, that was a real thing. You know, they would kind of beat up one of their own to leave them out there, and then everyone else would be lurking, ready to come get whoever was, willing to actually stop and try to help. Even when I was piecing this message together, just every time I thought about that, I just pictured all of them with like Tim's on, stomping somebody out. That was just my head.
What a New York mentality.
I know, man. Growing up in New York, what could I say? No, but honestly, like I loved all the answers, and even the idea of the just the little things. You don't know the power of it.
Yeah.
I remember hearing from someone when I was in college, kind of just being like, he's like, I appreciate like how when you ask how are you, it seems genuine, because like that's kind of just like for some reason in New York, we'll say, oh, how are you? And then we don't really want a response. We just kind of want to keep going. But, the idea of actually stopping and saying, no, but really, how are you? And like being genuine in that, really does spark, and you don't realize it. It's just maybe simple for you, but it could be world changing for someone else. So
right.
Just that idea of little things, I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I think if I could add something real quick, when Tati was saying that, I remembered this happens to me more often than not. So in like small talk, personally to me, I really like small talk with like strangers and people I don't know. Like I think it's cool getting to know other people. But more often times than not, I get caught up in times where I don't want to do small talk when I'm on my way to go preach somewhere. It's the weirdest thing. It happens all the time. If I stop at the gas station and get gas, if I'm, getting food on my way to go preach or something, there always seems to be like somebody talking to me and that I don't want them to talk to me. So I remember this one time I was coming down an elevator, and this guy came in the elevator closed, and I'm running late because I had to go preach somewhere. And I asked the guy, hey, how you doing? How are you? And he like almost broke down. He's like, man, I'm going through it. And I said, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. My floor opened, the lobby, the door opens, I go to walk out, and then I felt something inside of me like, why am I on this earth? I'm not here so much to publicly speak. I'm here to be salt and light. I'm here to be an ambassador. It's like, I can't talk to you. I have no time for you. I have to go do my thing. And I feel like the Holy Spirit stopped me, and he reminded me, why are you here? You're not here. I'm sure somebody's going to find a better preacher than I am. There's going to be better speakers than I am. This guy right now needs me. And so I'll literally never forget it. As soon as I, was going to leave, I turned around and I looked and I said, man, can I pray for you? He took his hat off, and he was an older guy too. He took his hat off. He said, I need it. And right there, we had a moment inside of an elevator. And we prayed, and then I finished praying, and I remember turning around, leaving, and I said, man, I never want to, for something like that to happen again. And I want the Holy Spirit to continuously remind me to keep the main thing, which is I'm put here to be salt, and I'm put here to be light. I'm put here to be an ambassador of Christ. That's why I'm here. I'm not here so much to be a cool public speaker or a great maybe even leader. I'm here to be a reflection of Jesus. And so in those small moments, those are the moments that seeds that are planted, that those are going to grow. And I constantly, I'm always reminded of one that happened to me a couple of years ago. And then I find myself, that happening over and over. And I always, I think of that one time, and I always try to, live in the moment and take advantage of whatever opportunity to be a light to people. So when Tati was saying that story came to mind.
That's a powerful story, and I think, again, so much truth in it. We get so caught up in rushing to the next task, running to the next whatever, that we feel those little inconveniences like, oh, I'm too big for that. I can't stop for that. I got to keep going. But, you don't realize the power of what stopping could do for that person, and even like you said, there'll probably be 1,000 speakers better than us and all these different things. But, having those moments to be salt and light, like that's exactly what we're here to do. So thank you for sharing that, honestly. So I guess we'll start with Tati this time. Um, how can Jesus be compared to the Good Samaritan?
There's so many ways he could be compared, but I want to point out one thing, and I'll let everyone else do their thing with this one.
Preach, Tati. Go ahead.
But
Thanks for leaving some answers for the rest
You're
of us.
welcome. You're very welcome. But I just, right now I'm really on the topic of grace. So something I wanted to point out was that so grace, if you don't know, is a gift. We can summarize it very easily as like a gift that is given to us that we don't earn, or we don't do something to earn, and it's just there with no strings attached. So I just wanted to point out, like with this Good Samaritan, he didn't receive anything from helping this man that was beaten down, and the man didn't, I wouldn't say he wasn't someone to the Good Samaritan. Like, it wasn't his son, it wasn't his employee that was helping him. He had nothing really to offer him at that moment in the eyes of the Good Samaritan, but he was just acting out of that grace, out of that love and mercy, which is something Jesus does to us. He just helps us, even though there's nothing we can give him in return, or we're not doing something first before we get the grace. He gives it to us first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that portion of the story and that quality reminds me a lot about Jesus.
Good answer. That was a really good answer. Okay. I guess focusing on the topic of grace, which like Tati had mentioned, it's a present freely given. Like you said, no strings attached. I really like that definition. Because, we as humans, whenever we receive a present, we constantly feel like we have to give something back to the person that gave us a present. Like, oh, you gave me something, that means now I have to give you something. I'm undeserving of this present. I obviously owe you something. And grace isn't like that. God's grace is not like that. It's given freely with no strings attached. I think Jesus can obviously be compared to the Good Samaritan, like Tati said, in numerous ways. If we look at the story of the adulterous woman, for example, that is another story of grace, where she had made a mistake and Jesus offered her grace, did not offer punishment, just offered her love and grace, a second chance. She did nothing to deserve it. She had nothing to give back, but he freely gave it regardless. Same as the story of the Good Samaritan. He didn't receive anything for the act that he did, but he did it anyway. And I think Jesus does that in the story that I had just mentioned, as well as in our everyday lives, because he offers us grace freely every single day.
I like that. I think if I could spin your question real quick, just a different way, I think more than, I guess, Jesus being the good shepherd, I think in this specific context, when I was listening to your message, I think I started realizing how much I'm the one in need for help. How much Jesus is, the Good Samaritan for me. And, we're talking about grace here. I think, yes, grace is freely given. And I think grace in itself is God's way of saying, I love you.
Yes.
And I think our actions in response to that gift of I love you is hopefully going to live out a life that says back to God, I love you too. Yes, it's freely given. God's going to give grace yesterday, today, forevermore. But if, the way you live doesn't reflect that grace, I dare question if you really are yet to experience God's grace. I think, it's easy to say, hey, grace everything, and I love it, and I'm with it because it's the good news. I think good news needs to remain good news. Good news is important. Our culture is filled with bad news. Grace is full of good news, and we love it, and I love it. And I'm a product of grace. We're all products of grace. But I think I need so much, help that I want my life to be an I love you too. Because if it's not, and if I'm just taking this grace for granted, and there's no obedience, along with this grace, like I said, I think you are, you're still missing it. I think you're still missing the point. And hopefully, in scripture, there's nowhere where grace isn't given, where obedience isn't expected. Is there more grace so that way I can sin more? In a nutshell, that's what Paul says. No, you're given grace so that hopefully your life, once you accept in that grace every day, you're a product of that grace. But, me personally, I'm broken, I'm hurting, but Jesus saved me. So I want to, in response, live a life that is in response to the grace that was already given to me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That is I want to think of a different word than powerful because I've used that a lot already, but I would just roll with it. It's powerful, man. I loved all those answers, thinking about, grace, thinking about how much, really looking at the story, we're the ones that need to be saved. And I think for me, it just shows Jesus meeting us where we are. If we really think about life, more moments than not, we are really beaten up and kind of just left for dead. I could attest to 2020 how much it's done that to me. But that willingness to, no matter the risk of it, no matter what Jesus might have thought, like he was still willing to come and meet us where we are and bring us back to health, and that willingness to come back for us too. I think it's just such a powerful statement, to say, it's not, I'll just take care of you now and then I'm gone. I'll take care of you now. I'm going to have to leave, but I'm going to come back for you. I'm going to make sure you're still good. So it's just, Jesus being the Good Samaritan is probably like the greatest example of who he is that I never really thought of before until really diving into this passage. All right, so closing up with a challenge for all of us. What is one way you can be a better neighbor this week? Lewis?
Lewis, you're put on the spot.
I think for me, it is going back to the first question. I think this week what I can do is try to and be intentional in looking at the people that maybe I wouldn't normally look at, and challenging myself to show Jesus to them, because though maybe I don't know them, they deserve to see who Jesus is too. And maybe my life is the only, example of Jesus that they're going to get. And so obviously I'm going to fail. But I think I take that as a privilege and an honor to know Jesus and to be a reflection of him, hopefully. So I think, to answer your question, I want to look and I want to be intentional to live in the moment and to not try to like sleepwalk through life and just barely get by. But I want to be intentional, and I want to make sure to keep the main thing the main thing. And I don't want to be too busy that I can't handle people. I want to make sure that I'm doing exactly what I'm put on this earth to do, which goes beyond occupation, which goes beyond, status. It's something supernatural. I think if it was all about occupation, Jesus was a carpenter. But if you look at his supernatural title, he was the Son of God. So I think I want to, operate in my occupation, because that's, a passion that God's put inside of me. And it's something that, I love to do. But at the same time, I also want to operate in my supernatural title, which is being a child of God, I think.
I'll answer before Gabby does, because I think we have the same answer.
Do you really?
Yes, sorry.
I hope not.
Sorry, not sorry. But one of my favorite ways to intentionally try to be a better neighbor is to reach out to someone and text them something encouraging, just randomly without them expecting it, something that'll set the tone for their day or encourage them if they're having a hard time to move forward. Yeah, or just anyone that you're around, like whatever it is that's going on. So for example, me and Gabby are in a women's Bible study group, so messaging all the ladies, telling them how much it means to us to be able to hear from them and their opinions and learn from them, things like that could go a very long way.
That's a good one.
Ha.
That's a really good
That's
one.
what she was going to say, I'm pretty sure.
It wasn't, but that's a really good
okay.
thing. I used to do things like that. I think I would want to do it again. I used to text like a group chat of my friends, or a couple, like if I think of a friend randomly one day, I'm like, oh, like I haven't spoken to that person, or I haven't seen that person. I'll be like, hey, like I miss you, hope your day is well. Usually it'll be in like the morning. So like Tati said, it'll like set the tone. So I think I want to pick that back up again. Because that was really good. But what I was actually thinking was also along the lines of Lewis, about just being more intentional. Because I find myself being a little bit more fatigued with my day. I work like long hour days. So like I'm really just focused on like doing my work and like being out, like going home and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So I think I do want to be more intentional when I speak to people, my coworkers or, you know, friends, family, like be more intentional and be more in the moment. Because I think I'm always thinking about the next thing that I have to do instead of being present and being intentional. I would also like to challenge myself, because I haven't done this, is like what Lewis said in his story, is ask if a person needs prayer. I think I'm going to challenge myself to do that with at least one person this week. Whether it'll be a stranger, I'm not sure. I haven't done that at all yet. But I think I would like to ask someone if they need prayer. I think more often than not, most people would say yes. If they say no, I think that's okay. And I think I have to also, you know, figure that out for myself. Like, not everybody would say yes. But I think just offering that to somebody can be helpful and can show love and can show, you know, God's grace and God's love. So we'll see. I think that'll be a good challenge for myself.
Oh yeah, those are all great answers, great ideas.
I feel like Sean says that
Powerful,
after
Sean.
everything.
They were
Those are all-
powerful answers.
They were powerful
answers and great
powerful
answers.
ideas. Hey, look, you know, if it's true, I gotta say it. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't change anything. But I'll come up with better responses next time. I got y'all.
Sean, how are you going to be a good neighbor this week?
That's a great question. I wonder who came up with it. No, I will be a better neighbor this week. Honestly, stealing a lot of your ideas. I will reach out to people I haven't talked to in a while. I really check up on them. I'm going to ask people if they need prayer, what they need prayer for. And also, yeah, I'm going to be more in the moment, you know, because I think like Tati had touched on it earlier, where it was sometimes we kind of forget about family, how family can be our neighbors as well. You know, so be more intentional in terms of my family being here and everything. That's how I'm going to be a better neighbor this week. All right. Well, that is everything we got for this week. We hope you enjoyed it, that you got a lot of wisdom and insight from these four people trying to figure out life. Don't forget to please like this, share with at least one person, subscribe to the channel. If you need prayer at all, please send it to myagapeculture@gmail.com. We'll throw that down in the description. You know, we love you. We appreciate you watching this, and we'll see you next week.
There is not a person, place, or thing in culture that God's love, the agape love, cannot completely transform. He is the way, the truth, the life, and we still believe in this generation